The lipstick on his collar wasn't mine. I don't wear lipstick. I wear the truth like a loaded gun, and tonight, I finally had ammunition. That's the thing about being married to Damian Cross, Alpha King of the Hartford territory. Everyone thinks the crown makes him untouchable. Nobody warns you that it makes him careless. My name is Elias Cross, formerly Elias Monroe, before I signed my whole life away in a courthouse that smelled like old paper and bad decisions. I'm an Omega, 28 years old, and for the record, I am not the soft, weepy kind who cries into designer pillows. I'm the kind who alphabetizes his grievances and serves them cold. I also have a gift, a curse, depending on the day. My grandmother called it the knowing. Doctors called it a neurological anomaly. I call it psychometry, because when I touch something, it talks. Objects hold memories like sponges hold water, and my fingers wring them out whether I want them to or not. Which brings me back to the collar. Damian's dress shirt was draped over the chair in our bedroom, the one in the east wing of the Cross estate, where the windows look out over the Connecticut River, like the house itself is too proud to face the city. He'd come home at 2 in the morning, kissed my forehead like I was a receipt he was signing, and gone to shower. I told myself not to touch the shirt. I touched the shirt. The memory hit me like cold water down my spine. A hotel room, gold wallpaper, a laugh that wasn't mine, low and pleased. Damian's hands, my husband's hands, sliding a suit jacket off shoulders that were not my shoulders. A scent, cedar and something sweeter, clinging to the fabric the way guilt should have clung to him. I set the shirt down very carefully, the way you set down something that just bit you. 3rd time this month. 11th time this year. Yes, I keep count. I told you, I alphabetize my grievances. This one files under B, for burn it all down. Here's what you need to understand about Damian Cross. He is, objectively, unfairly gorgeous. 6'3" of alpha arrogance wrapped in charcoal suits, with storm gray eyes and a jaw that could cut glass, and has definitely cut me. He runs the most powerful pack territory on the East Coast. Senators return his calls. Other alpha kings ask him for permission to breathe. And 10 years ago, he stood in the rain outside my college dorm in New Haven with a paper bag of terrible diner coffee and said, "I don't know how to do this, but I know it's you." I married that man, the one in the rain. I don't know when he died, exactly, but the man who came home tonight was wearing his face and someone else's scent, and he genuinely believed, that I would never leave. Why would he think otherwise? I never screamed. I never threw his $2,000 watches into the river, though the river is right there and honestly showing great restraint on my part. I smiled at galas. I charmed his counsel. I ran his charities and memorized the names of every pack member's kid, because he never bothered. Damian mistook my silence for surrender. Rookie mistake, Your Majesty. The shower shut off. I sat on the edge of our bed, hands folded in my lap like a churchgoer, and watched him walk out with a towel around his waist and steam rolling off his shoulders. Even now, my traitor heart did a little stutter step. Biology is embarrassing. "You're up late," he said, not looking at me. He picked up his crown ring from the nightstand, the platinum band with the cross sigil, and slid it on. First thing, always. Before his wedding ring. Priorities. "Couldn't sleep," I said. Weird thing. The bed felt too honest. His eyes flicked to me. There was a time that look could unravel me. Now it just felt like a security camera, checking if I was still in position. "Long night at the summit," he said. The Boston delegation ran late. I smiled. My grandmother also taught me that a smile is the best place to hide a knife. Did the Boston delegation wear cedar cologne? Because you smell like a forest that makes bad choices. Something moved behind his eyes. Not guilt. Calculation. That was the worst part. Watching him do the math on how little he needed to lie to me. "You're imagining things, Elias." He said my name like a door closing. "Get some sleep. We have the anniversary gala Friday." The anniversary gala. 10 years. There would be 400 guests, ice sculptures, and a speech about eternal bonds written by his publicist. And I would stand beside him in a tailored suit, smelling cedar on every future he touched. "Right," I said. "The gala. Wouldn't miss it." He turned off the light and slid into bed like nothing had happened. Because in his world, nothing had. Kings don't have affairs. Kings have appetites. And Omegas, well, we're supposed to be grateful for the leftovers. I lay in the dark next to 6'3" of oblivious royalty and made a decision so calm it scared me. I wasn't going to cry. I wasn't going to scream. I was going to do something far more dangerous. I was going to call a lawyer. But here's where the night got strange, and I need you to stay with me, because I still don't fully understand it. Around 4 in the morning, Damien's phone buzzed on the nightstand. He didn't stir. Alpha's sleep like conquered territory, deep and smug. I shouldn't have reached for it. Touching his phone was like grabbing a live wire. Too many memories, too much noise. But my fingertips barely grazed the case, and the knowing dragged me under anyway. Only it wasn't cedar and gold wallpaper this time. It was a hospital corridor. Fluorescent lights. Damien's voice, cracked in a way I had never heard it, saying, "He can never find out. If he finds out, I lose him. Promise me. Whatever it costs, promise me." And a second voice, answering, familiar. So familiar my blood forgot how to move. Because the voice that promised my husband to keep his secret, the voice in that sterile hallway, wet with tears that made no sense at all, belonged to the one person in this world I trusted more than myself. My little brother Wes. I dropped the phone like it burned. Damien slept on, crown ring glinting in the dark, while my whole world quietly tilted off its axis. I was going to divorce the Alpha King. But first, I needed to know what my own blood was hiding, and why a hospital. And why did Damien sound less like a cheating husband, and more like a man begging at a graveside? The lipstick wasn't mine. Apparently, neither was the truth. I lay there staring at the ceiling like it owed me money, listening to Damien breathe beside me, slow and even and infuriating. The phone sat on the nightstand between us, quiet now, but the memory it left inside me kept playing on a loop. Wes's voice. The hospital. Promise me, whatever it costs. My little brother had cried in a hallway with my husband, and neither of them had told me. Now a smarter Omega would have gone back to sleep, waited for daylight, and made a plan. I have never once been accused of patience. I slid out of bed the way you slip out of enemy territory, one careful inch at a time, and Damien did not even shift. 10 years of marriage, and the man could sleep through a fire alarm, a divorce filing, and apparently his own conscience. The floor was cold under my bare feet. Our bedroom door has a hinge that whines if you open it past halfway, so I opened it exactly halfway, sideways shuffled through the gap like a crab with a grudge, and eased it shut behind me. The hallway of the east wing stretched out long and blue in the dark, moonlight falling through the tall windows in pale stripes. Somewhere below, the Connecticut River moved against the banks, patient and indifferent. I used to love this house at night. It felt like standing inside something ancient and safe. Tonight it felt like standing inside a filing cabinet full of things I was never meant to read. Fine, let's read. Because here's the thing about my gift that Damien never fully grasped, even after a decade. He thought it only worked when I wanted it to. He thought it was a party trick, his clever little Omega touching an heirloom and telling dinner guests where it had traveled. He never understood that this whole estate talks to me. Every doorknob, every glass, every cufflink he forgot to hide. And starting tonight, I was done covering my ears. I went to his study. The door wasn't locked, because arrogance is its own security system. Inside, the room smelled like him, leather and smoke, and that expensive stillness powerful men wrap around themselves. His desk sat by the window, wide and dark, the surface clean, except for a fountain pen, a folded newspaper, and a small velvet tray, where he dropped his rings and watch when he worked late. The tray was empty tonight, but sitting beside it, catching moonlight like it wanted to be found, was his wedding ring. Not the crown ring. He was wearing that one, of course, even in his sleep. The wedding ring was the one he took off. My chest did something ugly and tight. I stood over that little gold band, hands hovering, and for 1 weak second I almost walked away. Because objects don't lie to me. People lie beautifully. Objects just hand you the receipts. Okay, I whispered to the empty study. Show me what you've got. I picked up the ring. The knowing swallowed me whole. Heat first, always heat, then the flood. Our wedding day, 10 years back, rain on the chapel roof in New Haven. Damien's hands shaking so hard his brother had to steady the ring. Him whispering the vows twice, because his voice broke the first time. The memory was so bright, so drenched in a love I could taste like sugar on the back of my tongue, that my knees nearly gave. Then the flood turned. The ring coming off. Hotel nightstands, one after another. Gold wallpaper, gray wallpaper. A lamp shaped like a heron. Off, 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 a rhythm of removal, my marriage set aside like a watch before a swim. Cedar cologne curling through every frame. A laugh I now knew too well. And then, buried under all of it, older, deeper, worn smooth like a stone at the bottom of a river, one more memory. That hospital corridor again. Sharper this time. The fluorescent hum. A vending machine flickering at the end of the hall. Damien slumped against the wall with the ring clenched in his fist, pressed against his mouth, and Wes standing in front of him wearing scrubs. Scrubs. My brother is a firefighter. My brother has never worn scrubs in his life. You can't tell Elias, Damien said in the memory, and his scent, even second-hand, even through an object, was pure ruin. Burnt amber. An alpha's grief smells like something ending. You saw the results. If he knows he'll do something reckless, he'll give it up. You know he will. And Wes, my baby brother, who once cried because he stepped on a snail, looked at my husband with red eyes and said, "Then you'd better make him hate you, Damien, because he'll never leave you any other way." The ring dropped from my fingers and rang against the desk like a tiny bell. I stumbled back into the bookshelf, breath sawing in and out, my own scent spiking so hard I could smell my distress filling the room, ocean salt, and crushed mint going sharp and frantic. Give what up? What results? Make him hate you. Make him hate you. I pressed both hands over my mouth and let the sentence detonate quietly behind my teeth, because there were exactly two possibilities, and I hated both of them. Either that memory meant nothing and my husband was simply a cheater with a flair for hospital drama, or the cheating itself was the point. Built. Deliberate. A demolition planned by the two men I loved most, for a reason they decided I couldn't survive knowing. And I want to be very clear about something. If Damien Cross thought getting caught with Cedar Cologne was going to be the worst thing that happened to him this year, he had wildly underestimated the man he married. Elias. Every muscle in my body turned to stone. Damien stood in the study doorway, moonlight cutting across his bare chest, gray eyes fully awake in a way that told me he had not just wandered down here half asleep. His gaze went from my face, to the desk, to the wedding ring lying where I'd dropped it, gleaming guilty in the dark. The air shifted. His scent reached me first, smoke and leather, and underneath it something I had not smelled on him in years. Fear. "What did you see?" he asked, very quietly. Not, "What are you doing up?" Not, "Why are you in my study?" What did you see? I lifted my chin, heart slamming, and gave him the smile my grandmother taught me, the one with the knife in it. "Funny thing, Your Majesty," I said. "I was about to ask you the exact same question." He didn't move. Neither did I. The study held its breath with us, all that moonlight and old leather waiting to see who would bleed first. Damien stepped inside and closed the door behind him. The click of the latch sounded absurdly loud, like a courtroom gavel. He crossed to the desk slowly, picked up the wedding ring, and turned it over in his fingers the way a man handles evidence he wishes he had burned. "You touched it," he said. "It was just lying there. Very seductive, your desk. Practically begging. Elias." "Damien." I matched his tone exactly, low and warning, and watched a muscle jump in his jaw. "Good. Let him feel what it's like to be handled." He set the ring down. "What you saw, whatever you think it means, you're wrong." Fascinating defense. You don't even know what I saw yet. I folded my arms and leaned back against the bookshelf like my heart wasn't trying to punch through my ribs. "Go on. Guess. Was it door number 1, the hotel with the gold wallpaper? Door number 2, the heron lamp? Honestly, the heron lamp offended me the most. Tacky." Something flinched across his face. Not shame. Panic, quickly strangled. He came around the desk toward me, and the room shrank the way it always does when he moves. All that alpha gravity dragging at the air. "You have no idea what you're playing with," he said quietly. "Neither do you." I held my ground even as his scent rolled over me, smoke and leather, and that thread of fear he couldn't hide. My own body, my ridiculous, disloyal body, leaned toward it the way it has for 10 years. Bond instinct is a con artist. It kept whispering that the safest place in the world was 2 feet in front of me, inside the arms of the problem itself. He stopped close, too close, close enough that I could see his pulse ticking in his throat, could feel the heat coming off his bare chest in the cold room. "Ask me," he said. "Whatever it is, ask me directly." And there it was, the trap. Because I could ask about Cedar Cologne, and he would confess to that, I could see it in his eyes. He was ready to hand me the affair like a sacrifice, gift-wrapped, which told me everything. A man only volunteers for one crime when he's hiding a bigger one. So I smiled and stepped around him, trailing my fingers along the edge of his desk, letting the wood murmur its boring little secrets. Contracts, coffee cups, nothing useful. Here's my question, I said. When did you last speak to Wes? The silence that followed had texture. I could have carved my name in it. Your brother? Damien's voice came out perfectly level, which was the tell. Nothing about that man is ever perfectly level unless he's rehearsed it. At the harvest gathering, I suppose? Why? The harvest gathering? I nodded slowly, picked up his fountain pen, put it down again. So not, for example, in a hospital corridor. You in tears, him in scrubs, the two of you deciding what I get to survive knowing. I turned in time to watch the color leave his face. An Alpha King, ruler of the most powerful territory on the East Coast, went pale as hotel sheets because of one sentence from his Omega. I would be lying if I said a vicious little part of me didn't enjoy it. Elias. He reached for me. I stepped back. One clean step and his hand closed on empty air, and I watched that land on him harder than a slap. Don't, I said, and hated that my voice cracked in the middle of one syllable. You don't get to touch me and make it foggy. That's your favorite trick. 10 years, Damien. Every time I got close to something true, your hands got involved and my brain filed for unemployment. That's not fair. Fair? I laughed, and it came out jagged. The man with cedar in his collar wants to talk about fair. Okay, let's be fair. Tell me what the results were. His whole body went still. Predator still. What results? The ones Wes saw. The ones that made you decide I'd, what was the phrase, do something reckless? I tapped my chin. Give something up? Ring any bells? Because the ring certainly rang mine. He turned away from me, braced both hands on the desk, and bowed his head. His shoulders were shaking, very slightly, and his scent had gone so dark and burnt that my instincts started screaming at me to comfort him, to fix it, to press my face between his shoulder blades, the way I used to during thunderstorms. I dug my nails into my palms and stayed where I was. Slow burn goes both ways, sweetheart. Let him cook. You want the truth, he said finally, hoarse. Groundbreaking idea. Try it. He straightened, turned, and looked at me with an expression I had never seen on him. Not in 10 years, not at funerals, not at pack wars, not at hospital bedsides. It was the look of a man standing on a ledge, deciding which way to fall. The truth is, I've been unfaithful, he said, repeatedly, deliberately. The cologne, the hotels, all of it. I won't insult you by denying it. That's not what I asked. That's the only answer you're getting. His voice hardened, crown voice, the one he used on councils and enemies, and hearing it aimed at me hurt more than the cedar ever did. Divorce me, Elias. Hate me, you should, but stop digging. I'm begging you, and I have never begged anyone in my life. Stop. Digging. The word begging cracked open in the air between us, and underneath his command I smelled it again, stronger now, flooding the study like smoke under a door. Terror, absolute animal terror, not of losing his crown, not of scandal, of me finding out. And that was the moment I knew, with the cold certainty my grandmother called the second knowing, the one that doesn't need touch at all. My husband was not protecting himself. He was protecting me from something, and he would rather I walk out of this marriage hating him than stay in it knowing the truth, which meant the truth was worse than betrayal. I picked up the wedding ring from the desk, held it up between two fingers, and watched him track it like a man watching his own heart get handled. Here's what happens now, I said softly. Friday, I stand next to you at that gala and smile for 400 people. And Monday morning, my lawyer files the papers. His breath actually stopped. I heard it. And in between, I continued, sliding his wedding ring into my pocket, stealing it, memories and all. I'm going to find out what you buried, Your Majesty, starting with my brother. I walked to the door and paused with my hand on the frame. You should have married a dumber Omega. I made it exactly 11 steps down the hallway before I heard him coming after me. Bare feet on hardwood, fast, and then his voice, stripped of all its crown. Where are you going? To see my brother. I didn't slow down. It's 4 a.m, he'll be asleep, and I find people are wonderfully honest when you wake them up before their defenses do. Elias, it's storming. As if summoned, Thunder rolled over the estate, low and theatrical. The universe has always had a flair for drama where Damien is concerned. Rain began ticking against the tall windows, then hammering, sheets of it silvering the glass. "Perfect," I said. "Matches my mood." I took the stairs down 2 at a time, crossed the foyer, grabbed my keys off the hook by the garage door. My hands were shaking. I want that on the record, because the rest of me was performing magnificently, but my hands had not gotten the memo. Damien caught up in the garage as I yanked open the door of my car, and when I say caught up, I mean he planted himself in front of the driver's side like a very handsome roadblock, rain already misting through the open garage behind him, barefoot, shirtless, ridiculous. "You're not driving to New Haven at 4 a.m. in a storm," he said. "Watch me. The interstate floods at the river bend. You know this. Then I'll take the back roads and think about my choices, like every other divorced person in Connecticut." Elias. He didn't shout it. That was the problem. It came out cracked down the middle, and the scent that rolled off him wasn't command at all. It was something raw and pleading, rain-soaked cedar smoke, and my bond, my stupid, loyal bond, pulled toward it like a tide. "Then get in," I heard myself say. "You have 10 seconds and you're not allowed to talk." He got in. The Alpha King of the Hartford territory folded himself into my passenger seat, dripping, in nothing but pajama pants, and buckled his seatbelt like a man boarding his own execution. If I hadn't been mid-heartbreak, I would have taken a photo. I pulled out into the storm. For 20 minutes, neither of us spoke. The wipers kept time like a metronome. The highway hissed under the tires, and lightning kept catching his profile in flashes. Jaw tight, eyes fixed ahead. He had grabbed his coat from the hook on the way out and draped it not over himself, but over the console between us. And it took me 10 miles to realize he had positioned it so the sleeve rested near my hand, in case I got cold. Old habit. He used to do it at drive-ins when we were broken 20. I hated that I noticed. I hated that a decade of small tendernesses could sit in the car with us like a third passenger, quietly filing an appeal. "You're doing the thing," he said quietly. I said no talking. "You bite your lip on the left side when you're building a case against me. Then my lip and I will see you in court." A sound escaped him that was almost a laugh, wrecked at the edges, and it hurt worse than the shouting had. That was the unbearable math of it. Somewhere inside the liar was still the boy with diner coffee in the rain, and I could not get to one without going through the other. The storm thickened as we came into New Haven. Wes's street was all triple-deckers and old maples thrashing in the wind. His apartment the second floor of a blue house with a porch light he never turns off. He calls it his lighthouse. He says it's so I always know I can come home. The porch light was off. I was out of the car before Damien could say my name, rain soaking me to the skin in 3 steps. Up the porch stairs, hammering the buzzer. Nothing. I hammered again, then grabbed the spare key from under the ceramic frog he thinks is well hidden, and the moment my fingers closed around that key, the knowing seized me so hard my vision went white. "Wes, hours ago, this porch." Phone pressed to his ear, duffel bag over his shoulder, hands shaking so badly he dropped this key twice. "How do you know he touched the shirt?" my brother was saying, voice thin with panic. "How could you possibly know that already?" A pause. Wind. Then Wes again. Barely a whisper. "No, you listen to me. The deal was he never finds out. If you go near Elias, I swear I'll tell Damien everything. I don't care what it costs me." The memory snapped like a cut film reel and dumped me back into the rain, gasping, key biting into my palm. Someone knew I had touched Damien's shirt. Tonight, within hours. Someone who was neither my husband, asleep beside me, nor my brother, who had sounded terrified. Someone had eyes inside my bedroom, inside my marriage, and both men I loved were negotiating with them in the dark. "Elias." Damien was on the porch now, coat thrown over my shoulders, turning me by the arms. Whatever he saw in my face made his own go ashen. "What did you see?" "He's gone." My voice came out flat and strange. Wes packed a bag and ran. Because someone called him, someone who knew what I did tonight before you did. I looked up into my husband's eyes, rain running down both our faces, and watched terror bloom there, real and helpless. "Damien, who else is in our marriage?" Thunder cracked directly overhead. He pulled me against his chest, one hand cradling the back of my head, and for a moment I let him, because the porch was cold and the world had teeth, and his heartbeat was the only thing in Connecticut still keeping a steady rhythm. His lips pressed to my wet hair, once, trembling. "Get in the car," he said hoarsely. "Please, I'll tell you what I can on the way." "On the way where?" He hesitated, and when he answered, his voice was so quiet the storm nearly took it. "To the hospital in Hartford, St. Anne's." His arms tightened around me like he could hold the next sentence back through grip alone. "There's a room there I pay for, under a name that isn't mine." So I pulled back and stared at him, rain and dread sliding down my spine together. "Whose name?" I asked. Damien closed his eyes. "Yours," he said. The word landed somewhere between my ribs and refused to explain itself. I stood there on my brother's dark porch, wearing my husband's coat, and laughed. Not a nice laugh. The kind that comes out when your options are laughing or screaming on a stranger's lawn at 4:40 in the morning. A hospital room. Under my name. I wiped rain off my face with the back of my hand. "Damien, I have never been a patient at St. Anne's in my life." "I know." "Then why does—" "Get in the car, Elias, please. Some things I can't say out loud on the street. Not because of you." His eyes swept the dark windows of the triple-deckers around us, and a chill that had nothing to do with the rain walked up my spine. Because I no longer know who's listening. We drove north through the storm, and this time the silence in the car was different. Not a wall, a held breath. "Talk," I said, merging onto the interstate. "You promised what you can. Start with what you can." His hands were clasped in his lap, knuckles white. The Alpha King, the man who once stared down 3 rival territories at a single table, was gathering courage to speak to his own husband. "2 years ago," he said, "you fainted at the harvest gathering. I had the flu. You didn't have the flu." He stared straight ahead at the rain. "You were unconscious for 4 minutes. Wes was there. He's the one who caught you. And when the pack physician couldn't explain it, I flew in a specialist. Quietly. I told you it was a business associate visiting. The heron lamp, the gold wallpaper." My stomach began a slow, sick turn. "He ran tests for 6 months," Damien went on. "Blood work smuggled out through Wes, because your brother trains as a paramedic in the off-season and could draw samples without you asking questions. Scans disguised as insurance physicals. And what he found—" His voice failed. He restarted it by force. "What he found was in the results Wes saw, the ones from the corridor. The night you heard me begging. Lightning lit the highway white. I kept my eyes on the road because if I looked at him, I was going to drift into the median." "Say it," I whispered. "Your body is rejecting the bond." The wipers kept their metronome. Tick, tick. The world had gone very small and very loud at the same time. "That's not a thing," I said. "Bonds don't—" "It's rare. A handful of documented cases. And Omega's system misreads the mating bond as an invasion and attacks it. Slowly. It presents as nothing. Fatigue. Fainting. Then one day, it isn't nothing." His breath shuddered in. "The specialist gave you 5 years, if the bond stayed intact. Longer, maybe a full life, if it broke. 5 years, 2 of them already spent. Breaking a bond requires consent or betrayal," I heard myself say, reciting pack law like a schoolboy, while my whole reality quietly rearranged its furniture. "And Omega can't just decide. The bond has to believe it. Yes. The bond has to believe it." I said it again, slower, and then the entire year assembled itself in front of me, like a puzzle dumped out of a box. The hotels, the cologne on his collar, always his collar, always where I would find it. Lipstick, when I have never once known Damien to be careless. 11 times. 11 staged crime scenes. You were feeding it to me. You were building a betrayal big enough that my own bond would sever itself and I would live. And you would just, what? Let me walk away hating you? That was the whole plan? Wes said you'd never leave me otherwise. His voice broke apart completely now, all crown gone. Just a man in a rain-wet passenger seat. He was right. You know he was right. If I had shown you those results, you would have chosen the bond. You would have chosen me. And I needed you to choose you. That wasn't your choice to make. The shout ripped out of me and filled the car, and I hit the steering wheel with the flat of my hand. 2 years, Damien. 2 years I thought I was going insane, cataloging your crimes, sleeping next to a stranger. You let me grieve you while you were still alive. Yes, he said simply, because you grieving me was survivable. The other thing wasn't. I pulled off at the Hartford exit because I could no longer see through the rain, or my own eyes. Take your pick. St. Anne's rose ahead through the storm, a lit tower against black sky. Then explain the rest, I said, throat raw. Explain why someone called Wes tonight, minutes after I touched your shirt. Explain who has eyes in my bedroom. Because your sad, noble demolition plan doesn't include a surveillance team, Damien, and the fear coming off you right now is not about my diagnosis. He was quiet for one block too long. The specialist, he said finally. Dr. Calloway. Aaron Calloway. The tests, the plan, the hotels, he arranged all of it. He was the only one besides Wes who knew everything. A pause, and his scent went dark. 3 weeks ago, I requested your file to seek a second opinion abroad. He refused. Said transferring it would expose us. And since that day, Elias, I swear it, since that exact day, he has known things he should not know. Things said only inside our house. Cedar. The scent on every staged pillow, threaded through every planted memory. I had assumed it belonged to a lover. It belonged to the doctor. I parked crooked across 2 spaces because civilization could bill me later, and we ran through the rain into the side entrance Damien clearly knew too well, up a service elevator, down a hushed private wing that smelled of antiseptic and money, to a door marked 421. The nameplate read E. Monroe, my name before him, my name in a building I had never entered. Your records live here, Damien said, keying in a code. Off-network. Paper only. Calloway insisted it was for privacy. I need you to touch the room, Elias. I need your gift to tell me if I've spent 2 years trusting the man who... The door swung open. The room was not empty. A man sat in the chair beside the untouched bed, legs crossed, unhurried, as if he had been waiting for the storm to deliver us. Silver at his temples, kind, clever eyes, and a scent that reached me from the doorway and turned my blood to ice water. Cedar. Hello, Elias, said Dr. Aaron Calloway, smiling like an old friend. I was starting to think your husband would never bring you home. Home. He said it the way you say a word you've practiced owning. Damien moved before I could blink, planting himself between us, and the growl that came out of him was nothing human, nothing royal, just animal warning filling the room wall to wall. How did you get in here? I have a key, Damien. I have all the keys. That was rather the arrangement. Calloway rose from the chair, smoothing his jacket, entirely unbothered by 6'3" of furious alpha. That alone told me everything about the balance of power in this room. Storms make people sentimental. I had a feeling tonight was the night the shirt would finally do its work. And here you both are. The shirt. Finally do its work. You knew I'd read it, I said slowly, stepping out from behind my husband, because I have never in my life been good at staying behind anyone. The collar, the cedar. You weren't sloppy, you were loud on purpose. You've been leaving me breadcrumbs. 11 of them, Calloway said, pleased, like I'd solved a chart question. Your gift is remarkable, Elias, but it needed feeding. Your husband thought we were staging a betrayal to break your bond. I was staging a trail to bring you to this room. 2 birds, 1 marriage. Why? Damien's voice was gravel. The plan was to save him. You built the plan. No, I built a plan you would agree to. The doctor turned to the window, hands clasped behind his back, watching lightning stitch the sky over Hartford. The bond rejection is real, incidentally. The lab work doesn't lie. But the timeline I gave you, 5 years? He glanced back at me, and something moved behind those clever eyes, old and starved. That part required creativity. Fear makes kings so very obedient. The floor tilted under me. 2 years of my husband dismantling our marriage, brick by brick, tears by staged tears. On a schedule this man invented. You lied about him dying. Damien's scent went volcanic. He took 1 step, and Calloway raised a single finger. Careful. Everything I know lives in more places than my head. Touch me and your Omega's condition becomes very public, very fast, along with a documented history of an Alpha King committing systematic adultery. Your counsel would eat you by Friday. He smiled again, gentle as a scalpel. Sit with your rage, Your Majesty. I'll be in touch about what happens next. Oh, and Elias? He paused at the door, close enough now that his cedar scent crawled over me, and I understood with sick clarity why my body had been flinching from hotel memories for a year. When you're ready to know why your gift exists, he said softly, why your grandmother had it, and why I have spent 9 years arranging to stand in a room with you, ask your husband what he found in your family's old pack records. He's been sitting on that too. Then he was gone, footsteps fading down the hushed corridor, and the room let out its breath. My knees decided their shift was over. I sat down hard on the edge of the untouched hospital bed, the one with my name outside, and stared at nothing. Damien locked the door, checked the window like a man clearing a battlefield, then came and knelt in front of me. Not beside me, in front of me, on the tile, an Alpha King on his knees, his hands hovering an inch from mine, asking. I didn't know, he said. Elias, on my crown, on my life. I believed every word of that timeline. Every hotel, every night I made you hate me, I thought I was buying you 30 more years. If I'd known he inflated it, if I'd known he wanted… He couldn't finish. His head dropped, and I watched a drop of water hit the floor between his knees, and it wasn't rain. 10 years, and I had never once seen Damien Cross cry. I know, I said quietly, because I did. The knowing doesn't only live in objects. His grief had been soaking every memory I'd pulled all night, real as blood. You absolute idiot. You catastrophic, self-sacrificing idiot. You were going to let me spend the rest of my life thinking you were garbage. You were going to have a rest of your life. That was the entire point. That was never your math to do alone. I took his face in my hands and made him look at me, and his eyes were wrecked and gray and 20 years old again, standing outside my dorm in the rain. Hey, listen to me. I am furious with you. I will be furious with you for a very long time, possibly at your funeral, which at this rate, I will outlive you to attend. Nothing about tonight is forgiveness. I know. But… My thumb traced the line of his cheekbone, and his breath stuttered, and mine answered it. And the bond between us, the sick, attacked, dying bond, lit up like a struck match. Warmth flooded my chest for the first time in 2 years, and I realized with a start what had been missing all this time. He'd been strangling it, deliberately dampening his side so it would wither faster. Every cold kiss on my forehead had been him holding a pillow over the thing keeping me connected to him. Stop smothering it, I whispered. Just for a minute, let me feel you. Elias, the rejection, every hour it's active it. 1 minute, Damien, you owe me 1 honest minute. He broke. He surged up and kissed me, and it was nothing like the receipt kisses of the last 2 years. It was the chapel in New Haven. It was diner coffee in the rain. It was 10 years of held breath released all at once. His hands shook against my jaw. My heartbeat slammed into his through the bond, and I felt his answer under my palms. Twin drums finally playing the same song. I pulled him closer by the collar of that ridiculous coat and let the storm outside handle the soundtrack. When we finally broke apart, both of us unsteady, foreheads pressed together, he laughed, wet and disbelieving. You stole my wedding ring, he murmured. You committed 11 fake affairs. We are not comparing rap sheets tonight. His smile faded slowly. His thumb brushed my lower lip, and his scent shifted, dread creeping back in through the warmth. Elias, what Calloway said. Your grandmother. The pack records. He pulled back just enough to meet my eyes. There's something in room 412 he wanted you to touch. Why do you think he chose this room, kept it under your old name, and made sure tonight ended here? I went very still. Then, slowly, we both turned and looked at the bed I was sitting on. I stood up like it had caught fire, which, in a way, it was about to. You never once asked me to read this room, I said. 2 years of paying for it, and you never brought me here. Calloway said the stress of knowing would accelerate the rejection. Damien's voice had gone hollow. Every rule in this building was one of his rules. I see that now. Then let's break all of them. I flexed my fingers, shook out my hands like a pianist before a recital, and pressed both palms flat against the mattress. The room dissolved. Memories don't come in order. They come by weight. Heaviest first, and the heaviest thing this bed had ever held was not a patient. It was my grandmother. Younger than I ever knew her, sitting on this exact mattress in this exact room, decades of it flickering past like slides. Room 412 had been hers. The private wing, the paper records, the name on the door. E. Monroe was never waiting for me. It was hers first. Eleanor Monroe. And standing at her bedside, decade after decade, barely aging, patient as winter, was a man with clever eyes. Calloway. The gift skips and settles, my grandmother said in one flickering frame, her hands folded, her voice tired in a way I recognized from the end. You can wait 100 years, Aaron. It will never choose you. It only passes through blood. Then I'll wait for your blood, Calloway answered pleasantly, and the memory shifted, and I wanted to vomit. The slides sped up. My grandmother's funeral suit laid on this bed. Years of emptiness. Then new weight. Recent weight, and the bed showed me its last 2 years, like a witness finally under oath. Wes, my brother, sitting on this mattress a dozen times, head in his hands, Calloway circling him with a folder. Your paramedic certification was my recommendation letter, the doctor was saying in one frame. Your apartment lease runs through my holding company. Do remind me, Wesley, what exactly do you own that I didn't give you the week after Eleanor died? And Wes, my baby brother, crying without sound, drawing my blood samples with shaking hands because the alternative in that folder was something he could not look at. He hadn't betrayed me. He had been livestock in a pen built before either of us was born. I was sobbing now, somewhere far away in my body, and I felt Damien's hands gripping my shoulders, heard him calling my name from the surface, but the bed was not finished testifying. One more memory, 3 weeks old, the heaviest of the recent ones. Damien, my Damien, sitting on the edge of this mattress, alone, a folder of PAC records open in his lap, Eleanor Monroe's file, and Calloway, standing at the window, saying, in the voice of a man discussing weather, so now you know what the gift is worth, and what I have invested in it. The timeline stands, the affairs continue, the bond breaks on schedule, the divorce goes through, and the moment your marriage is legally dead, Elias's protections under your crown die with it. He becomes an unmated Omega with no PAC, and unmated Omegas with no PAC can be claimed by petition. I'll never sign the petition transfer, Memory Damien said, gray-faced. You won't have to. Divorce him, and the law does it for me. Refuse, stay bonded, and the rejection kills him while you watch. Choose, Your Majesty. His life or his freedom. You cannot keep both. The memory released me like a hand opening, and I came back to room 412 on my knees, Damien crouched in front of me, saying my name over and over. I looked up at my husband and watched him realize, in real time, exactly which memory I had just finished. Elias. 3 weeks. My voice came out scorched. You've known for 3 weeks that the divorce is the trap. That the whole plan, his plan, ends with me claimed like a parking space. And an hour ago, in that car, you were still selling it to me. Divorce me, Elias. Hate me. You said it tonight. Because I found another way out. I've been building it, quietly. That's why he's escalating. That's why he surfaced tonight. Another way you didn't tell me about. I was on my feet now, and so was he, and the room was too small for what was happening in it. That's the disease, Damien. Do you understand? Not the bond, this. 10 years of you deciding what I can survive knowing. My diagnosis, my brother's chains, my grandmother's whole stolen life. Every single person in this story got a vote about my future except me. I was trying to save you. I never asked to be saved. I asked to be married. The words hit him like a physical blow. He actually stepped back, and the silence after was total, just rain against the window and 2 heartbeats through a battered bond, out of rhythm again. You want honesty? He said finally, very low. Here it is. Yes, I would do it again. All of it. Every lie, every hotel, every night you cried where you thought I couldn't hear. I would burn my crown, your trust, and this whole territory to keep you breathing, and I will not apologize for it, because a world with your hatred in it is still a world with you in it. And there it was, the most romantic thing he had ever said, and the most unforgivable, wearing the same sentence. Then you still don't understand what you took. I pulled his wedding ring from my pocket, the one I'd stolen off his desk a lifetime ago tonight, and set it gently on the bed that had ruined us. On her bed. I can forgive a man who lied because he was drowning. I don't know how to forgive a man who promises to keep lying. Elias, if you walk out of this room alone, you are exactly where he wants you. Then that makes 2 of you, who should have asked what I wanted. I walked to the door on legs I did not trust, and stopped, hand on the frame, not turning around. Friday, I'll stand next to you at that gala, because 400 witnesses is the one place Calloway can't touch either of us. After that, I don't know what we are. And tonight? His voice cracked on it. Tonight I'm going to find my brother before Calloway does. I stepped into the corridor, and the fluorescent lights hummed, the same hum from the memory that started all of this, and my phone buzzed in my pocket. A text, unknown number. A photo of Wes, asleep in the front seat of his truck at a rest stop, taken through the window. Beneath it, 4 words. Bring the gift, alone. I stared at those 4 words until the screen dimmed, and something in me went very quiet and very cold. Not fear. Fear had left the building around Act 1 of this evening. This was the other thing. The thing my grandmother used to call the second knowing. The certainty that arrives without touch. Calloway had made a mistake. For 9 years, the man had run a flawless game. He'd leashed my brother with debts, steered my husband with grief, scheduled my heartbreak like chemotherapy. Every player managed, every move anticipated. But his entire strategy rested on one assumption. The same assumption Damien had made. The same one every alpha in this story kept tripping over. That I was the prize, not a player. Elias. Damien stood in the doorway of room 412, and he had seen my face change. What is it? I turned the phone toward him. Watched the photo of Wes land. Watched Alone land harder. Watched him take one step toward me with his whole body already saying no. You're not going. Correct, I said, pocketing the phone and walking past him back into the room. I'm not going. We're going. But first, you're going to shut the door, sit down, and do something you have named done in 10 years of marriage. Which is? Brief me. Fully. Like I'm a general and not a casualty. I sat on the windowsill, arms crossed, storm still flickering behind me. You said you found another way out. You said that's why he's escalating. So the king has been building a weapon in his basement. Show me. Damien shut the door. And then my husband, the man who had spent a decade wrapping me in silk and silence, made a choice. I watched it happen. Watched pride and terror and 10 years of habit go to war behind his gray eyes, and watched, for the first time, all of them lose. The specialist in Zurich, he said, sitting on the edge of the bed. The second opinion. Calloway blocked. I got your samples out anyway. Smuggled. Months ago. Through the Boston delegation. That was the summit tonight, Elias. That's where I was. Not a hotel. The knowing in me hummed. Truth. And? The rejection is real. But Zurich found what Calloway buried. His hands were shaking. He let me see it. It isn't the bond your body is attacking. It never was. It's the suppressant. The floor tilted. I've been on suppressants since I was 19. Prescribed by whom? The answer arrived like ice water, my first heat specialist. The kind older doctor my grandmother, near the end, had specifically warned me away from, in words I'd dismissed as fog and morphine. Recommended to a scared teenage Omega by a family friend of a friend. 9 years of refills, 9 years of Calloway. He's been poisoning me since before we met, I said slowly. Slow, deniable, dressed up as medicine, and when it started presenting, he diagnosed his own poison as bond rejection, handed you a fake clock, and sold you a cure that just happened to end with me divorced, unprotected, and claimable. I laughed, short and vicious. The bond was never killing me, Damien. The bond is the only thing that kept me too anchored to steal. Zurich confirmed it Tuesday. Stop the suppressants, and you live. His voice dropped to gravel. I was going to tell you after the gala. Once you were somewhere safe, once I'd built the case, I had a plan, Elias. Documents, testimony, the works. And there it is. I slid off the windowsill and crouched in front of him, taking his face in my hands, making him look at me. Right there. After the gala. Once it's safe, you were going to manage me one more time, even with good news, even to save me. You were going to do it to me instead of with me. Do you finally see it? That's the wound, Damien. Not the hotels. He was quiet for a long moment. Rain ticked against the glass. My father managed my mother into her grave, he said at last, hoarse, and I went still, because in 10 years he had never opened this door. Protected her from every truth in the territory. She found them all out at once, at the end, from strangers. I swore I'd never let you be blindsided like that. So I decided the safest thing was for me to be the blind side, a broken sound, half laugh. I became him by trying not to be him. That's my confession. That's the whole rotten root of me. And there, on a hospital floor at 5 in the morning, I finally met the man underneath the crown. Not the boy with diner coffee, not the king. Just a frightened son who thought love was a wall you build around someone. Here's what I need you to understand about walls, I said softly. I don't want to live inside one. I want to stand on it. Next to you, handing you bricks and pointing out targets. That's the marriage, Damien. That one. Can you actually do that one? His eyes searched mine, and for once he didn't reach for me, didn't fog the moment with hands and heat. He just answered. Teach me. Not a vow. Vows were his old currency, and we both knew what they'd bought. This was smaller and infinitely more expensive. 2 words with his whole crown laid down inside them. Lesson 1. I stood, pulling him up with me, and the bond between us flickered, weak but stubbornly alight. Calloway wants the gift walked into a trap alone tonight. So we give him exactly what he asked for. The gift arrives alone. I smiled, and I felt it come out sharp enough to cut. He should really have been more specific about which Monroe gift. Damien frowned. Elias, the gift is you. The gift is blood, I said. His own words. In her memory. It passes through blood. 9 years he's watched me. But my grandmother had 2 grandchildren. Damien and Calloway has spent this whole game so certain the power settled in the pretty one, who reads objects, that he chained the other one to a leash and never once checked him for teeth. I held up my phone, the photo of my brother sleeping in his truck. Wes isn't the hostage. Understanding dawned across my husband's face, slow and thunderstruck. Then what is he? The knife Calloway has been keeping in his own pocket. I grabbed Damien's coat off the chair and threw it at him. Now drive, because my baby brother is about to wake up at that rest stop, and when he realizes Calloway just used him as bait to summon me, 9 years of that leash is going to snap at once. We hit the corridor running. And Damien, I called as we burst into the stairwell. At the gala Friday? You're giving a new speech. Saying what? The truth, all of it, in front of all 400 witnesses. I grinned back at him over my shoulder. Lesson 2. Walls hide you. Stages protect you. We took the stairs like the building was burning, out through the rain to my crooked parking job, and Damien drove because my hands had finally stopped pretending to be steady. The rest stop sat 20 minutes north on I-91, a lonely smear of sodium light against the storm, and Wes's truck was exactly where the photo promised. So was Calloway. He stood beside the truck under a black umbrella, unhurried as always, and my brother was awake now, out in the rain, positioned between the doctor and the highway like a chess piece that had just discovered it had legs. Elias. Calloway's smile flickered when Damien stepped out of the car behind me. I said alone. You said bring the gift, I called across the wet asphalt. So I brought all of it. And I looked at my brother. Wes, hey, look at me, not him. My voice carried through the rain, steady in a way I'd earned tonight. I know about the lease, the certification, the folder. I know everything he chained you with. And I am telling you, in front of him, none of it was ever your fault. You were a kid guarding a snail in a rainstorm, and he built a cage around your kindness. But Grandma had 2 grandchildren, and I need you to stop holding your breath now. My brother's face crumpled, then hardened, and 9 years snapped at once, exactly as I'd promised. Wes turned, looked Calloway dead in the eye, and said, You should run. What happened next, I can only describe the way I felt it through my own gift. Because Wes's power was never reading the past. It was the mirror of mine. He touched the doctor's umbrella, one finger, and showed Calloway his own future. Every version of it. Every courtroom, every headline, every locked door at the end of every road. Decades of consequences delivered in a single second of contact. Retrocognition and precognition. 2 grandchildren. 2 halves of the knowing. Calloway made a sound I will treasure until I die, sat down in a puddle, and did not get up until the state police arrived. It turns out the Boston delegation Damien had been meeting all those nights included 2 federal prosecutors and a very patient forensic accountant. The King's basement weapon, documents, testimony, the works. He'd built the case. I'd built the moment. Together, it worked. Wes cried into my shoulder in the rain for a long time, and I let him. And Damien stood over us both with his coat spread like a roof, asking nothing, guarding everything, learning. Friday came anyway. Fridays do. 400 guests. Ice sculptures. The grand hall of the Cross Estate glittering like the inside of a chandelier, and me in a midnight blue suit at my husband's side, 3 days off suppressants and already feeling the difference, warmth returning to a bond I'd thought was rotting, color bleeding back into a world I hadn't noticed going gray. Damien stepped to the microphone, set aside the publicist's speech, and told the truth. All of it. The diagnosis that wasn't. The doctor who was. The staged affairs, his own words, his own shame, laid out plainly before his counsel, his allies, his enemies, and every camera in Connecticut. He told 400 people that their king had spent 2 years deceiving the only person he'd ever loved, that the deception had been built on his oldest fear, and that his Omega had solved in one night what he had failed to solve in 2 years, because his Omega had done the one thing kings forget to do. Asked questions out loud. I was raised to believe strength was silence, he said, and his eyes found mine across that sea of crystal and held. My husband taught me it's the opposite. So this is me, being strong. He lifted his glass. To Elias Cross, not the jewel of this territory. Its second crown. The hall stood. 400 witnesses. Comment section, do your worst. But the real ending happened later, past midnight, when the last car had crunched down the drive, and the ice sculptures were surrendering to physics. I found him on the east terrace, tie gone, watching the river. The storm had finally moved out to sea, and the sky over Hartford was rinsed clean and thick with stars. So, he said, Monday, your lawyer. Cancelled the appointment. I came to stand beside him at the railing. Turns out the divorce was the trap. Staying is the rebellion. And you know how I feel about rebellion. His breath left him slowly. Hope looks strange on a king. Tentative, like a language he's still conjugating. Elias, I need you to know, forgiveness was never the deal I expected. What I did is going to take years, I said. I mean that. Real years. We're getting a counselor, a beta, someone unimpressed by crowns. You're going to sit on a small couch and use feeling words, and I'm going to enjoy every second. He laughed, wrecked and real. And there will be days I look at you and taste cedar and need to walk out of the room. That's the cost, Damien. You said you'd burn everything to keep me breathing. Well, this is what's left after a fire. We rebuild slow, or not at all. Slow? He said instantly. I choose slow. I choose the small couch. I choose you deciding what I can survive knowing, for the next 50 years, and finding out I can survive all of it. Careful, Your Majesty. That was almost a feeling word. He turned to me then, and took my hands, and I felt his wedding ring back on his finger, retrieved from room 412, memories and all. He'd chosen to wear the evidence. Both of ours. All of it. Ask me, he said quietly. The thing you never ask. The thing your gift could take from any object I own. Ask me out loud instead. I knew what he meant. 10 years of knowing everything through my hands, and never once through his mouth. Do you love me? I asked, out loud, like a person. Since the rain in New Haven, he said. Through every lie I told to keep you. In every room of every hotel, where I sat alone by a heron lamp and hated myself. I love you the way your gift works, Elias. Completely, whether it's convenient or not. The bond between us flared, healing, wholly unsmothered for the first time in 2 years. And when he kissed me under all that scrubbed clean sky, it wasn't the chapel or the diner coffee. It was something new, something with scar tissue in it. And stronger there, the way broken bones heal thick. Wes moved into the guest house in spring. His snails, he informed us, would be needing the garden. The council ratified my title in June, second crown of the Hartford territory, and I have used it almost exclusively to overrule Damien's opinions about throw pillows. And sometimes, on quiet nights, I still pick up his shirts before the laundry takes them. Old habit, new results. The collars only ever smell like him now, like smoke and leather and home. The lipstick was never mine. The truth, finally, is. Thank you for watching this story to the end. If you enjoyed this story, you will surely love the next one. It's as crazier and more intriguing as can ever imagine. So do check it out. Hit subscribe. The next story drops soon.